So hello everyone, I have made another project which is a data visualization project. I have used chart.js for this and what this project is about, it's basically showing the import and export of various countries and the major sectors in which they have their import and export. So I had the dataset already with me and that is how I was able to create this. So let's look at the UI first. In the left hand side you can see there is a sidebar. I have named the company as LST Goods. So there is a dashboard too, in which you can see the analytics and e-commerce of various countries. So over here, I have used a carousel, which is showing different means in which countries export their goods. So this is airway, then we have waterway, railways, and other ways in which basically countries exchange their commodities. So the data set had a lot of countries which had the information, but the major entries were of these countries. So I've just included the visualization or charts of these countries in the analytics part. So over here I have added some basic CSS property of hovering and maximization. This is a carousel and I had used a separate library for it, which we'll see later. This is the footer section over here. So this is the entire homepage. Let's look at the analytics part. So over here I have first used a bar chart, then a pie chart and a radar chart. So if I want to see suppose I want to see for the entire database what it consists of. So overall in the database there are 1,000 entries consisting of different countries. Over here, you can see the likelihood of exportation of various countries. So, among all the countries, USA has the largest number of exports. It has a likelihood of 348. Then we have Russia, India, Saudi Arabia, China. These are the major exporters which are present in my database. Now, these are the sectors in which basically there are a lot of exports in. So, the major sector is oil, then it's gas, we have biofuel, strategy, economy, consumption, and various other things. And the intensity of various sectors is placed here. So there are total 433 entries in the database that have their intensity high in financial services and respectively in information technology, retail, aerospace, defense, etc. So if suppose I want to see all these things for a one particular country, right? If I select United States of America, I'll just see all the entries in the database for the USA. So in the bar chart, as I've selected the country as USA, all other are zero except this. So USA has oil exports majorly, then gas, strategy, and all these things. If I select India, as you can see now, all the rest of the countries are zero, and India we have a likelihood of 64. So India is an exporter of oil, cars, and gas. Over here, we have also high intensity in energy exportations and manufacturing. As car is there, obviously we'll have manufacturing over here, and we also provide financial services to other countries. If I just want to go for a particular topic, which is gas, I can see that major exporters of gas are USA, Egypt, India, Russia, Mexico, and China. Over there, as I've selected gas, there is only the availability of gas, and somehow gas affects the IT sector, financial services, environment, and all other things are zero basically. Next, if we go for anything like oil, again we have these countries which have their likelihoods of oil exportations. And again, oil exportation is mainly used in the aerospace and defense industries, financial services again, environment, information technology, healthcare. Basically, it's used in every field, and so this radar chart is distributed accordingly. Next, if you select a particular sector like energy, so what this is a combination of energy sector under the oil. So over here, as we can see, we have selected oil. So majorly only oil exportations are there. So total there are 364 entries. In the radar chart also all other intensities are zero. But in the countries section we see that for in the energy sector and under the topic of oil, the likelihood of USA is 154, Libya is 9, Egypt is 7, India is 22. So similarly we can play around with other countries and look at the data. So somehow Turkey with topic oil and in the energy sector it doesn't have any entry. So that is why it's showing like this. If we select some other country like Russia, okay, Russia has it. Okay, so we have selected the sector energy. So the radar chart is completely pointing towards energy and the topic is oil. So over here everything is the pie chart is completely occupied by the oil domain and the country Russia it has a likelihood of 24. So basically, if we select all the topics or entries, the charts will be modified accordingly. And as we deselect a topic, it starts giving the overview of the entire database. So this is the overview of the entire database when none of the entries are selected. As I told you, there are 1,000 entries in the database. So if I show you, there are a total of 1,000 entries, and this is the JSON format which I've stored in the MongoDB. So let's look at the code over here. So this is the actual data over here. It had a lot of fields. So end year, insight, URL, region, published, when this report was published and when it was added, which industries were main dominated. So for the chart, I didn't need all of these data. So I had to filter out certain data that are required for making charts. All that thing was done in the data retrieval part where I've used the FS module provided by Node. Over here, I listed out all the important things that are needed for making the visualizations. After that, I created a new items array in which all these things are there, which are imported from the JSON data. And I'm writing this, I'm stringifying the new data and I'm creating a new file called as data.json. So over here data.json is created along with the fields that I require. Next, let's look at the processing. So how I figured out that only these countries are important, I used the reduce method provided by JavaScript. Over here I took various parameters into consideration and found out that these countries have their major entries in their database. Other countries were there, but they didn't have any significant impact, so I've not included them. Similarly, I've used the FS module over here to read the files and find out the information accordingly. So as you can see, the missing values which are there. So out of 1,000, total country values which are missing is 650. Region values is 453 and intensity is 38. So that was done over here. So let's look at the index.js file. Over here, I have used the course middleware to prevent the course error, and .env library is being used. I have used all the routers are exported over here basically, and these are the API endpoints. Here, I have connected it to the MongoDB database, and it is listening on port 8080. Let's look at the controllers. So I have there is an option in the MongoDB compass to export the JSON data as it is, but I decided to create a route for it. And upon hitting that particular endpoint, I have used the insert many function provided by the Mongoose to us to insert all the entries in the database. So basically, these all entries were inserted into the database via this API endpoint. Next, we have the retrieval middleware. Basically, how we are rendering the information in the UI is we are passing all the selections which are made in the UI as query to the backend. So as you can see, I have used data equals to await chart.find request.query. So all these data will be added onto the URL and then it will be passed to the backend via Axios, which I'll show you in a minute. Uh, the model here, as you can see, I had selected some particular fields which were important from the actual JSON data. So I've created the model accordingly. And let's look at the front end part now. So this is the app.js file. Over here I've used React Router DOM for navigation, and there are total three components or pages I can say, which is homepage, analytics, and e-commerce. So let's look at the analytics page. It is just rendering a component called as main area. Let's look at the main area first. As I'd found out that some particular countries, topics, and sectors are important, I created an array and listed them down over here. So all these have major entries in the database, which can help in visualizing the charts in a better way. I have used these use states basically. Some are array and are empty objects. So what am I doing here is I am using the update URL function. What it does is basically, okay, first let's understand the UI. Over here, I have used a drop down list for selecting countries, topics, and sectors. So, whenever you select that particular country or topic, this function is invoked. And whenever this function is invoked, you can see that if selected country exists, I want to push to the query parameters country equals to selected country. So, this is the basically JSX pattern which I have used. And then I'm using the another variable to join all these parameters with an and. So as this is an array and I have to pass it as a URL in a query, I have to use and sign. Okay. So over here I am then appending this query string to the actual URL so that it can be passed to the backend. Once all these topics are appended along with a ampersand sign, I can then use Axios to pass it to the backend, and then I am whatever response is coming from me to the backend, I am using a state set response data, and I'm storing that response in this use state. And if there is any error, I'll just console log error. Okay, so as you can see, first I didn't select anything, so there is a plain question mark. After the question mark, as you know, I had selected the sector as energy. So over here, another parameter is added. And if I hover over here, you can see first I had added the sector energy, then I'd selected topic oil and energy, and then I'd selected the country. Basically, this is all in the reverse order. So 5 minutes ago it was empty. 3 minutes ago, first I'd selected the United States of America, then India, then again it was empty. So as you can see, we are using the API, we are hitting the API endpoint along with the query parameters over here. So in the backend, everything is coming in request.query. So it's easier for the backend to pass the data to the front end. So this is all about the main area component. Now let's look at the homepage. So homepage basically contains images and carousel, which is typically what all homepage consists of. So I have used the TW Elements React library for implementing the carousel, and these are all the images of various flags which are rendered. Over here, I have used instead of mapping, there were only four items, so I just implemented the same element which is used to render a carousel, and all this is present in the documentation given on the website of TW Elements. So that's it. Let's look at the various charts which I've implemented. As I said, I've used chart.js for implementing the charts. Over here, you can see I'm importing bar chart from React chart.js. Okay, so what am I doing over here? Let's again come to the main area part. Over here, after selecting everything, I'm passing all these use states as props to the respective components. As you can see, bar chart, pie chart, and radar chart. So response data, countries, topics, and sectors are all passed as query parameters, basically to the backend and as props to that respective components. So in the bar chart, I'm destructuring those components over here, and I'm creating a new array. So I decided that the bar chart should be between countries on the x-axis and likelihood on the y-axis. So I have created this new array, initialized it with 0, and this final response. So all the objects that are coming from response.data, I've converted them into an array in final response. After that, I'm just mapping each and every item with the countries array, which I declared in the main area.js. So if so, basically, I've just considered some particular countries, right? So in the country, if the country returned from the backend is present in the array which I had declared in the previous component, and the likelihood is a number, then I am adding that likelihood to the array, and these things are being passed to the bar data. So as you can see, label these countries, the array which I had declared in the main area.js files, and these are the data sets array which consist an object of background color, border color, and data. So see, data is this array likelihood which I've declared over here. So once this is declared, I can use the inbuilt element provided by the React.js file library, which is the bar. Data is bar data. I am giving it the width and height. So all these properties are mentioned in the documentation. You can always refer to the documentation. Similarly, I've created the pie chart and radar chart. So again, pie chart was between uh, various topics and sectors, and yeah. So over here I'm using similarly what I done in bar chart. I'm declaring another array, initializing it with 0, converting the response.data into an array, and I'm iterating. So if that particular topic which I've declared in the array is also in the JSON data which has been given to me by the backend, I am just adding it to the resources array at that particular index. This may sound complicated, but once you go through the code, it is quite easy. And again, these are various color codes which I've used. So these are normal background colors and hover color in the pie chart. As you can see, this is light, and I'm hovering, it's becoming dark. And similarly, I've used the pie component from the React chart.js library. And radar chart also contains various sectors, and respectively the response data contains various sectors. So upon selecting those parameters in the UI, the count of those sectors is coming to me. And I'm adding that and storing it in the intensities array, which is again similar to what we did in the previous two components. Here, there are a variety of things included, like there are a lot of properties. All these properties are there in the documentation. So we are using the data as intensities array, and these are the background color, border color, point color, and these are all the CSS properties you can say, and we have rendered it over here. So this was all about the project. I hope you liked it. In case you want to provide many suggestions, you can always put them in the comments below. Thank you.